we're ready to go.
Yeah.
Good morning. I'm Sheriff John Rutherford, and I want to thank you for joining us in our online chat program. And this is an opportunity for you to speak directly with the sheriff of the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. I love this opportunity to speak directly with the public without any of the filters of media. So if you would, our call-in show number is 904-630-1832. You can call that to ask questions. I do have a lineup of issues that I'd like to discuss today. However, many times citizens want to talk about something other than what is on the agenda, and I'm always open for that. So if you'd like to call in on any other issue, feel free to do that as well. Just a reminder, when you are calling in, please mute your computer so we can hear you more clearly. And also, you can tweet us at JSOPIO or type your question under the post on the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office Facebook page. And our email is at jsofeedback@jaxsheriff.org. And again, that call-in number is 904-630-1832. And on the agenda today, some of the items that I'd like to talk about are, first of all, Amendment 2 in medical marijuana that will be on the ballot in November. It's a constitutional amendment to the state of Florida's Constitution. Also, talk about the budget as it was presented by Mayor Alvin Brown to the City Council and the impact that that's going to have on public safety here in Jacksonville. Also, in that discussion is also some discussion about the pension. And I'm sure many of you saw the recent article by the Florida Times Union dealing with the pension of one of our former chiefs, Bobby Deal. Professor Mick Hallett wrote, I think, a very good and informative response to that Times Union article on his personal blog, and we'll talk about that. Of course, I always want to talk about crime in Jacksonville and where we're at, up or down, and where it's going and what we're doing about it. And then also a reminder that this week, September 14th through the 20th, is in fact the NHTSA's, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration's Child Passenger Safety Week. And we want to talk briefly about that and some local opportunities dealing with young drivers. And then finally, I want to wrap it up with, there's a gentleman who's working on his Eagle Scout, and I want you to know about him. His name is Adam Resch. And he has actually taken his Eagle program as the Fallen Officers Memorial Initiative. And I'll talk more about that when we get into that. But as you may have seen last night, I had an opportunity to meet with Mr. John Morgan, who's the attorney that has very much put himself personally behind Amendment 2. And again, Amendment 2 is a constitutional amendment to Florida's Constitution that will legalize medical marijuana. Many people that talk about legalizing medical marijuana understand or believe that it is actually about debilitating medical conditions. Children with intractable epilepsy, people with ALS, Crohn's disease, cancer, a lot of horrific diseases that they are suffering from. And in fact of the matter is, as a sheriff of Florida, and personally, I support the idea of medical marijuana for debilitating medical conditions. And in fact, under Florida law right now, under the Florida medical necessity law, there are hundreds of people throughout the state of Florida who are growing and producing and processing marijuana for loved ones who have truly debilitating medical conditions as determined by their doctors and established by the courts. And that's how they're able to do that. Folks, the fraud that is being perpetrated in November on the citizens of the state of Florida is this. Amendment 2 is not about debilitating medical conditions. They tell you that. It even tells you that in the ballot summary. And I actually have the constitutional amendment petition form that was signed by thousands of Floridians who thought that they were signing a petition to have, as the ballot summary says right here, allows the medical use of marijuana for individuals with debilitating diseases. Now, what they don't tell you is there's a definition for what a debilitating medical condition is. And if you actually read the body of this amendment, what you find out is under B1, definitions, debilitating medical condition, and I'm going to read this to you right off of the petition form. It says that means cancer, glaucoma, HIV, AIDS, hepatitis C, ALS, Crohn's disease, Parkinson's disease. Those are all debilitating cancer. Those are all debilitating medical conditions that, quite frankly, I don't think most people have a problem with. And in fact, if you look at the surveys that have actually been conducted throughout the state, what you see is an overwhelming support for medical marijuana for debilitating medical conditions. However, as I didn't read the full definition there for you. Let me finish what it says. It then goes on to say, or other conditions, that means any other condition, for which a physician believes that the medical use of marijuana would likely outweigh the potential health risk for a patient. Folks, what that means is doctors will be able to prescribe medical marijuana for any condition that they deem it outweighs the risk of the patient. So what we will have is everywhere, and look, what the proponents of this would like you to believe is that you can take some solace in the fact that doctors are going to make these decisions. Well, listen, these are the same doctors, and I don't want to besmirch all doctors, but these are the same doctors that were running all of our pill mills. Every place we had a pill mill shop, we're now going to have a pot shop. And this is not about debilitating medical conditions. Folks, medical marijuana will be in every backpack in our middle and high schools in the state of Florida. Here's another thing that people don't know. And although they say that there's a 88% approval rating for this, what you really have is a situation where once you educate the public and tell them, no, it's not just for cancer and ALS, but it could also be for tennis elbow or back pain or a stubbed toe, then that support begins to fall off. When you also educate them on the fact that it does not require parental notification, a lot more support for this amendment will fall off. Right now, I saw last night on the news, they're reporting a 61% agreement over medical marijuana for debilitating medical conditions. They still think it's for debilitating medical conditions, and it is not. And that's why we need to educate the citizens of the state of Florida about exactly what this amendment says. I had an opportunity last night at UNF, and I want to thank John Morgan and the American Civil Liberties Union. He had a forum last night at the UNF Center, and he was gracious enough to give me 5 minutes to speak when he was done. What struck me in his presentation was this. Mr. Morgan spoke very eloquently about his compassion, the situation with his own father and his own brother, and how medical marijuana assisted them and others that he knows of. And I agree completely with that. He talked about how the medical marijuana truly does work. He said, look, I'm not a scientist, but I know it works. I've seen it. Again, he referenced his father and his brother. And look, I agree with that. In fact, when I got up, I told him, I said, Mr. Morgan, I agree completely with you. I'm a compassionate person. But what you just spent 40 minutes talking about is not what this amendment says. This amendment says it's for any condition for which a physician believes that it would likely outweigh the potential health risk for a patient. That's what it really says. He never once in his presentation spoke about the language in this petition form and in this amendment. Never once spoke to the language in this. Never talked about caregivers, the fact that these caregivers can give medical marijuana to a qualifying patient without their parental notification. So if you have a high school student who suffers anxiety because of testing, if he wants to go and get qualified by a doctor, he can then take that certification from the doctor, give that to his personal caregiver. Personal caregivers have to be 21 years old, and they can go and pick up the medical marijuana for them, and no parent ever need be told of it. So I am adamantly opposed to this amendment the way it sits. I'm continuing to work with Mr. Christopher Ralph and others with the health services law firm that is looking to really get a better grasp on what the medical necessity laws in the state of Florida already say. In fact, they oppose. A lot of people who are treating their children now through the medical necessity laws of the state of Florida are adamantly opposed to this. And the reason they're opposed to it right now, and they're already providing medical marijuana to their loved ones. The reason they're opposed to it is because this will restrict them from being able to do that individually, as they are doing now under Florida law. What this will do is prevent them from being able to grow it on their own, and then we'll have to go to retail establishments, which is going to increase the cost. And as one woman who has a daughter suffering from brain cancer last night was saying, she will not be able to afford that. This will also preclude at any point insurance ever paying for medical marijuana. Look, there's a way to pass laws. You can pass them through the legislature, or you can pass them through constitutional amendments. This does not need to be passed in the state of Florida as a constitutional amendment. That is not the way to create law. The best way to create law is let it run through the legislative process, like Charlotte's Web, that medical marijuana extract that was just passed by the Florida legislature this last session, this year. That's the process that we need to go through, so that things like the definition of medical necessity, debilitating medical condition, what's the definition of that? Because the definition here is much broader than people think. It's basically any medical condition. And so we need to vote this down in November and go through the legislative process so that it can be properly vetted for this state and for this community. So I urge all of you, vote against the constitutional amendment 2 that will be on your ballot in this November. And do we have any callers yet?
I do have a comment that's been posted to Facebook, a question, Sheriff. It's from Phil Rogers. He states, has the city council decided to give back the money to our budget that we need? As a retired correctional officer who worked at CTC, are we going to have to lay off officers there?
Okay, good question, Phil. And that moves me right into the budget discussion. Look, after having voluntarily cut millions of dollars within my budget this cycle, the city council, because of the budget that they were presented from the mayor's office. Look, I actually went into this process believing that the mayor's office was going to fund 40 new police positions to be restored in my budget, the restoration of 40 police officers and 40 community service officers. However, the the budget that the mayor presented had over $250 million of borrowing and one-time money. I know, as the council knows, that that is not possible. That budget was a roadmap to Detroit. And for those of you that don't know, Detroit went bankrupt. Now, we're a long way from Detroit, but that's how Detroit got there, following the roadmap of the budget that was presented by Mayor Alvin Brown to this city council. This finance committee, chaired by Richard Clark and the others, the council finance committee has done a fantastic job in working through what they were given from the mayor's office on this budget. They worked very hard at taking all of the borrowed money and one-time money out of the budget and not relying on borrowing to balance our budget. You certainly wouldn't do that at home. You're not going to go, you're not going to take a credit card and go charge a bill for your mortgage on it when you don't have the money. And that's really what Mayor Brown's office was asking the city council to do with this budget. And we can't do that any longer. Our debt fund is at capacity. So they had to cut the 40 officers and the 40 community service officers that were going to be restored to my budget. They had to cut them because there were no recurring dollars in the budget, in the general fund budget, to fund them next year. So I would have been in the position of hire them this year and then lay them off next year, unless we're going to borrow that money again. And so you see where this goes. The city council understood. Richard Clark and the finance committee, Lori Boyer, all of them have done a fantastic job on working on this budget and getting all of that excess borrowing and one-time money out of it. The problem is, in that process, they also took the city's overall overtime went up by over $8 million. JSOs remained flat, but they did an across-the-board cut of overtime, of that $8 million in overtime, and put $1.2 million of that in my budget, even though we weren't part of the excess overtime that had been put into the city budget. So last week, I went back to the city council, and I asked them, I said, please restore the $1.2 million that you took out of my overtime, because that was actually not supposed to happen. If you listen to the discussion on the floor of the council during the finance committee, they talked about excluding the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office and Fire Rescue from the overtime cut. So I've asked them to put that $1.2 million back. I have also asked them to reconsider the $4.3 million across-the-board cut that they initiated at the last moment of the budget discussions for the finance committee. You may have seen on television where they got the hole down to I think something like $8 million, and then they did a 2% across the board cut. Well, that's $4 million for the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, because we're 50% of the general fund budget, just the general fund budget. So $4.3 million of that hit my budget. Well, I'm asking them to restore. So of the $5.5 million extra that they took out of my budget, after all of the other cuts that we made, all of the other millions of dollars of cuts that we made, they hit my budget with an extra $5.5 million. I appeal to the council to reconsider that, set some priorities. Look, in your own personal lives, in your own personal financing. At my house, for example, if I had to cut 2% out of my budget, I would cut taking my wife out to dinner at night versus not paying my mortgage. My mortgage is something that I have to do. Of course, taking my wife out to dinner may be something I have to do occasionally too. But honestly, you have to set priorities. And a 2% across the board cut is not setting priorities. And I reminded them of that. And I know that the Finance Committee wants to find a way to give me that money back. But they want to do that without using one-time money. I'm not sure where all of that's going to wrap up. Now here's where I'm at. And this goes back to Phil's question specifically. If I get the $4 million back, I intend to carry a large number of police and corrections and civilian vacancies throughout next year's budget so that I can make up that $1.5 million that I have to make up of the 5.5 if they give me the 4 million back. I will try to make it through vacancies. At some point during the year, if it looks like I'm not going to be able to make it, then my next option would be to have to close the Community Transition Center, move those inmates and officers to MCC and PTDF, the jail, and that's how we intend to make our budget. I'm not going to lay off any correctional officers either. We will simply grow those vacancies, and by closing that facility, I would not have to hire officers because, as you know, in corrections, if I run vacancies, they cost me overtime. So the only way I can save in corrections is not by cutting officers, but by closing facilities. I hope it doesn't come to that. If I don't get the $4 million restored at the beginning of the budget, I can almost assure you that before the end of the year, our Community Transition Center and our tremendous drug treatment program called Matrix House will be closed. And those inmates will be sent to the remaining 2 facilities. So I hope it doesn't come to that, and we're going to work hard and do everything we can to prevent that from happening, but I am not going to lay off a single police officer or correctional officer. I may carry a lot of vacancies, and we will, but I'm not laying people off. And to kind of put this in context historically, when I became sheriff, we had about 1,603 police officers. We got that number up to 1,750 before Mayor Brown was elected. We had 92 community service officers. In the last 3 budget cycles under Mayor Brown, I have lost 147 police officers and all 92 community service officers. I cannot cut any more officers. But running a vacancy is going to have the same effect as cutting a position as far as fighting crime. And here's what concerns me there. In 2011, as I mentioned, we had 1,750 police officers. The year Mayor Brown took office, 1,750. Now we have cut 147 of those. Violent crime in 9, 10, and 11 was dropping in double digits. In fact, in 2011, the city of Jacksonville had the lowest total crime numbers we had seen since 1971. And that same year, 1971, it just so happens, we had 71, odd situation there, but we had 71 murders in 1971. Same number we had in 2011. So, and our population has probably doubled, or more than doubled, since 1971. So you can see we had tremendous reductions in crime in this community back in 9, 10, and 11, going down in double digits. Now, the first half of this year, we just sent our uniform crime reports in. Murder is up this year 54%. This is through June of this year. Murder is up 54% from 33 in 2013, which, by the way, was up from 12, which was up from 11. So in 14, it's up 54.5% through the first 6 months. That's from 33 murders to 51. Rape is down. That's good. 4.5%. Robberies are up 11.8%. Aggravated assault is up. That's someone getting shot. That's up 18.3%. Our total violent crime in Jacksonville is now up 14.9% when we had it going down in double digits like that for the preceding 3 years. Property crime is also going up 3.1%. That's burglary, larceny, motor vehicle theft. Those are all up 3.1%. So it's clearly an issue of resources. In fact, we moved officers into the ceasefire area earlier in the spring when we saw a huge spike in violence in that area. I had to move 60 officers from other parts of the city into the ceasefire area. We did that. I told the city council, I said, some of you are Peter and some of you are Paul, because I'm getting ready to rob Peter to pay Paul. And we pulled officers from all of the other districts and all of the other council people's districts to put them in the ceasefire area. We saw tremendous reductions in crime immediately in those areas. We went out and knocked on 14,000 doors, asking people, telling people how they could help the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office drive this violent crime out of their community, and it worked. It went down over, I know it was double digits, I forget exactly what the number was. I don't think I have it here with, oh, I'm sorry, I do have it with me. Within the operational boundaries from March of 12 to June of 12, it went down, homicides went down 66%. Aggravated batteries with a person shot went down 36.4%. And aggravated assaults, where somebody pointed a firearm at someone but didn't pull the trigger, went down 46.9%. So that's the impact that 60 officers had in a very defined area of Jacksonville. Tremendous reductions in that crime. So this is an issue of resources. And that's why I've made this appeal to the city council. I know they're doing everything they can because they do not want the city of Jacksonville to go the way of Detroit, but I also don't want us to go the way of the south side of Chicago. So that's been my position on the budget. Do we have anyone else?
We have a Facebook posting, and there's a lot of talk on social media. Tina Connor just posted to Facebook, and she writes, with 2 more women's bodies found dead on the north side, that makes 3 in less than a week. Any word on whether or not they're related? Is there a possible serial killer on the loose?
Good question, Tina. Thank you very much. No, we do not believe that they are related. I can tell, well, I can't say much about why I know they're not related, but no, we do not have a serial killer in Jacksonville. I can assure you that. And that's really all I can say about that investigation right now. We do have some very strong leads that we're working, but I really cannot get into that. Anything else?
We have a post on Twitter from Angie McAllister. Sheriff Rutherford, how do you feel about harsher punishments for bullying?
Look, I think we have harsh enough penalties for bullying. We just need to enforce them, and we need to hold people accountable. We don't need to add new laws. I think we just need to enforce the laws and the rules, I should say, also that we have within our public schools and private schools. Bullying is, a much more nefarious situation because we have this social media aspect to it now that we didn't have when I was growing up. But so I would just suggest more enforcement of the laws that we do have and the rules that we do have within our schools.
Baby Doll is what her Twitter name is.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to ask the sheriff, what do you think about being tougher on kids who commit crimes?
Let me say this. I don't think we should be tough on crime. I think we should be smart on crime. And here's what I mean by that. Look, we need to utilize, where we can, alternatives to incarceration, particularly for our youth. The civil process we have a civil citation process where we can issue citations to juveniles for minor property crimes, for example. And I concur with that, and we need to do that. We also need to look at, for example, for our adults. Look, we have a great program out at, we're really kind of running out of JREC, our Jacksonville Reentry Center. And this is a program, it's called Dismiss, Operation Dismiss, and that's D-I-S-M-A-S. And Dismiss, by the way, is the patron saint of reformed prisoners. And as violent and heavily involved drug inmates are coming back to Jacksonville, who were arrested in Jacksonville, we set them down. In fact, we just held a dismiss meeting that I spoke to last week, or the first part of this week. And what we do is we tell them that, look, they have a choice. They have a choice to make. And we tell them, you know, I tell them I almost don't care what else they do when they come back to Jacksonville, just don't pick up a gun. And it really is a choice between what we call the hammer and the hope. And the hammer is the alphabet soup of law enforcement. It's the JSO, the FBI, the DEA, the ATF, you know, all of the local, state, and federal law enforcement that are going to go after these guys if they pick up a gun. Because we tell them, we know they've been violent in the past, or we know they've been heavily involved in drug trafficking, which means that they were in carrying guns, I'm sure. And so we tell them, look, you're a special group. And if you get picked up for carrying a gun, we are going to come after you with every resource available, local, state, and federal. And we will get you the largest amount of time back in prison that we can get you. That's the hammer. But the hope is sitting at a table off to the side called JREC, the Jacksonville Reentry Center. If they have needs to come back, we want them to be successful. I want them to be successful when they come back from prison, because I know if they're not, they're going to go back to what they know best. So the Jacksonville Reentry Center wraps services around these individuals, whether it's mental health treatment, substance abuse treatment, helping them with transportation, with housing, with jobs, all of the things that it takes to be successful. Help them as they're coming back into our community. And I made it very clear to the Secretary of the State Department of Corrections that this program is only going to be for folks who were convicted in Jacksonville, sent to state prison, and are returning to Jacksonville from state prison. They worked with us. They now send all of the inmates, this particular group, through Baker County Correctional Institute a year to 18 months prior to them getting out of prison and coming back to Jacksonville. They are placed at Baker County Correctional Institute, because that gives us an opportunity as a community to begin working with these inmates long before they get out. And so we're actually able to start working with them so that by the time they get back to Jacksonville, we know where they're going to live. We know where they're going to work. We know where they're going to worship. We know we've really wrapped some services around them that helps them be successful when they come back. And that's been a tremendous program. Dismiss, where we set them down and tell them if they pick up a gun, we're coming after them. The first year after implementation of that program, we had a over 35% reduction in the number of convicted felons arrested for carrying a concealed firearm. That's an amazing accomplishment. And so we need to get smart on crime, not just tougher. I think that is tougher, but it's also smarter, because we want people to succeed. With our youth as well, same thing. That's why we have the civil citation process. Now, look, there are those that want to issue a civil citation to a child who strikes another child in the head, picks a fight, starts a fight, commits a battery. I'm not talking about, you know, the old, like when I was growing up over at Forest High School, you know, it was meet me at Bitburger after school. And you go over there and have a fist fight. That's not what we're talking about. That's a public affray. That's a mutual combat. What I'm talking about is a battery where you have an individual sitting in a seat, not even paying attention, and some guy comes up and clocks him upside the head. That's a battery. I'm not going to give that kid a civil citation. That's not going to happen. Not as long as I'm sheriff. I believe in the civil citation process, but not for that. Anybody else?
We do. We have a phone call. Her name is Joni, and she wants to talk to you about Shadco and the recent sheriff's walks that you have been on. She's going to be calling in right now. I believe she is a Shadco member.
Hello, Joni.
We're waiting on her to call in.
Oh.
They're supposed to
They transferred it?
call. She was a little shy about talking, so hopefully she still wants to talk.
Sheriff, National Night Out you could mention, because our Shadcos are very active in that if you want to.
Okay, National Night Out is actually coming up. What's the date on that? It's not here. Oh, maybe it is. Yes, it is. October 7th, Tuesday. Listen, if you have a neighborhood watch program, we encourage you. October 7th, Tuesday, is Jacksonville's National Night Out. You need to register your National Night Out event, and you can do that. You can do that by calling Community Affairs at 630-2160. And do we have Joni?
Yes, this is Joni, Sheriff.
Hey, Joni, how are you? Are you a Shadco member, Joni?
Yes, Sheriff. I'm a Shadco member. I've been a Shadco member since the inception.
Now I recognize your voice now. How you doing? I won't
good.
use your last name, Joni.
I'm good. I just wanted to make a comment on one of the callers about how he would like to see you walk all the areas in Jacksonville. Jacksonville is a very large area. We have 6 zones, and each zone we have all these sectors. And I know, being involved with Shadco for all these years, I have walked all your walks.
Right.
And I have ridden in all my zones, and I'm very involved in Shadco. And what we even have lieutenant walks in our zones now that our chiefs have brought onto the public.
Exactly.
But I would like to see more people involved in Shadco, because we are the eyes and ears for you guys. We are out on the streets seeing the activities. We are the ones that are reporting it. And I have officers in my zone. I have a chief in my zone that is so proactive that they have my back. And I know we get backed up at lots of calls of service, and I know there's a lot of calls of service, and sometimes there's a little bit of a wait. But my officers show up and they take care of business.
Exactly.
But being active in Shadco, the citizens in Jacksonville need to find out what zone they're in, what sector they are, when their meetings are, so they can meet monthly as a group to troubleshoot the areas that they have in their area.
Well, Joni, and you even took on a leadership role in Shadco and were chair for many years, I think, right?
I've been a Shadco chair for many years.
Many years, yeah. So
many years. I know my officers in my area. I know them by name.
Yeah.
I've got a relationship with my zone chief.
Exactly. And Joni, thanks for calling in and talking about that, because it is important that the public understand. Shadco, the Sheriff's Advisory Council, this is a great way, and we have over 19 of these throughout the city. So there's one in every geographic area of the city where you talk about the problems of that small geographic area. And the beauty of it is Joni says, and Joni refers to them as, my officers. I love to hear that. I love hearing that, because that's the kind of ownership that I want the community to have with their Jacksonville Sheriff's Office and the members that ride their neighborhood. My officers. I love to hear that, because that tells me there's a relationship there.
It's the partnership that I have built with my officers.
Right.
That's the whole thing about it. You build a relationship with these officers. They know you. They know your area. But I'm in Zone 3, which I'm in one of the largest zones of the area.
Right.
But when I'm driving in Zone 5, or I'm driving in Zone 6 or Zone 1, if I see a problem, I don't hesitate to call.
Right.
I take that active role, because if you don't see it and you don't hear about it, you're not going to know it. You can't address it.
Exactly. And I should mention that Shadco is now over 3,000 strong. So thanks to Joni and others like Joni who have really made Shadco a tremendous success. And look, she mentioned the sheriff's walks, and we do those all over the community. But as Joni mentioned, this is a very large community, 840 square miles. So I haven't been in every community in the last 11 years, but I'm going to tell you, I've walked a very large portion of this community. And we knock on doors and ask people to get involved, and you know what? They do. Sometimes all you got to do is ask. And I can tell you, a lot of crime has been solved through the Shadco program, and people knowing that they can call in and become a part of the Sheriff's Advisory Council. I would encourage everyone that wants to know more about Shadco. Where is the Shadco near you? You can go to www.jaxsheriff.org and click on Community Affairs, where you can click on the Shadco button, 630, or you can call 630-2160. 630-2160, that's Community Affairs. Or if you go to our website, you can just click on Shadco, and that'll give you all the information you need.
Thanks,
Joni, thank you very much.
Hey, no, I thank you guys. I thank you for everything you do and for serving and protecting me and my family and the citizens of Jacksonville. You guys rock.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye.
We have a Susan Baker Singer posted to Facebook, and she doesn't necessarily have a question. She's asking you to reiterate something to the public. Can you drive home the fact that people need to call the police when they see and hear something, like gunshots, drunk drivers, kids hanging out suspiciously, and especially if you've seen a crime or murder? We all need help since they aren't giving you your money back to get your officers back.
Yeah, listen, Ms. Baker, that's a great point. We absolutely need the public's help more than ever. The fewer officers I have, that's fewer eyes and ears out there on the street as law enforcement officers, which puts a greater need for the citizens to become involved to keep us as efficient and as effective as we are. So you just heard Joni talk about, when I see something, I call in. That's the kind of civic responsibility that we want all people to feel out there. And understand that you can remain anonymous. We're not going to, put your name out to the bad guys on the street. You may not, look, you can call and give a tip through First Coast Crime Stoppers. I encourage that. That's a great program. People who are afraid and want to maintain their anonymity, call First Coast Crime Stoppers, but call. That's the important thing. And listen, no tip is too small. You never know what little piece of information that you may have is the critical piece to bust a case wide open, just like this double homicide this afternoon or yesterday. So call and let us know things that you see and hear out there on the street. We'll follow that up and help keep you safe. I think that's a good citizen's responsibility. So thank you for that.
That's all we have.
All righty, well, good, because I want to mention. Some of you may have seen the piece in the paper the other day. The Florida Times Union ran an article. The $5 million police officer, retired Chief Bobby Deal. A friend of mine, a good friend of mine, Michael Hallett, who's a UNF professor now. Professor Hallett and I don't always see eye to eye on everything, but on this situation, we do. And I would encourage you, he has his own personal blog where he's responded to this article, which I thought was incredibly unfair. Number one, to Officer Bobby Deal, who has served this community for many, many years, putting his life on the line, but also unfair to the pensioners and the officers that are here, because it makes it look like we're grubby, evil little folks trying to steal from the pension. And I just want to send you to his blog. His personal blog is at http:// semicolon, backslash, double backslash, jacksonvillejustice.wordpress.com backslash 2014 backslash 09 backslash 06 FTU, and then it's got FTU dash massively. So go to Michael Hallett, Professor Michael Hallett's blog, and read about the pension. He mentions many issues in here that I addressed back in 2008 during some budget talks. And in fact, if you go to the JAXSHERIFF.org and go to our newsroom, and then click on the pension discussion with the media, and this was December 10th of 2009, the very issues that Professor Hallett spoke of in his article were addressed in that video. And these are just some of the issues that I want to point out. First of all, this pension was passed by several different mayors, several different city councils. It was not a secret deal, so to speak. And what I really want people to understand is that the problem is not the benefits, as Professor Hallett makes very clear in his article. The problem is not the benefits. The problem is the city for many years, and the JCCI report on the fiscal state of Jacksonville bore out also when they looked at it, that the city did not properly fund the pension as they should have. Not because of benefits, but because of improper funding and the laissez-faire type of funding that the city took toward the police and fire pension fund. And I was also glad to see him point out something that I've been railing about for the last 5 years probably, and that is we don't have just a problem with the unfunded liability in the police and fire pension fund of $1.65 billion. That's just the unfunded liability. Folks, we also have another $1 billion of unfunded liability in the general employees pension fund and the corrections officer pension fund. So we don't have a $1.65 billion problem. We got a $2.65 billion problem, and that's what we need to address. Excuse me. Now, I've made the recommendation to the City Council and the Mayor that we take all of this unfunded liability that is spread throughout all these budgets throughout the city, which is how they concealed it for all these years. Take all that unfunded liability out, put it in one place in the budget, in the city budget, and say, okay, here it is, $2.65 billion. Here's what we're going to do about it. Pass a half-cent sales tax to pay for it. Dedicate it to that $2.65 billion until that unfunded liability is gone. This year, just to throw some round numbers out, excuse me, just this year, the pension cost for the city are $150 million for police and fire. $150 million. You know how much of that actually goes to pay for the benefits? About $50 million. About $14 million of which the employees pay. So, as Professor Hallett points out, it's not the rich benefits. Even the Times Union's own article that he has referenced in his blog, their own article showed that our pension benefits were very middle of the road, except on the COLA. And that's go read the article, and I think you'll understand that this is not an issue of benefits. It's an issue of improper funding, and it continues to this day. So, with that,
We're done.
Okay. I promised to address a couple other issues, and I want to do this very quickly. NHTSA, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. This is their Child Passenger Safety Week, and I want to encourage folks to, thought I had something on that. Where did that go? We have, as soon as I find it here. Yep, here it is. just to let you know, it's important to make sure that your child's car seat is installed correctly. A certified child passenger safety technicians from Safe Kids Northeast Florida are at Destination Maternity from 9 a.m. to 11, the second Friday of every month. So I want to encourage you to take care of that. You can make an appointment by calling 904-202-4302. And that's to get your certified child passenger safety technician to look at your child's safety seat. Also, for the older kids, I want to mention the 2014 Teen Driver Challenge class is coming up. That class is sponsored by the Florida Sheriff's Association with grant funding from State Farm Insurance. That class will be held during the evening hours of Friday, October 3rd, and on all day Saturday, October 4th. It's open to teen drivers ages 16 to 19 who would like to learn more about safe driving, and you have to live in Duval County. Also, the participants will need to have access to a safe and insured vehicle for the class. For more information on this and to begin the registration process, you can call either 904-630-2160 or go to www.JAXSHERIFF.org and select the Teen Driver Challenge from the calendar section in the middle of the homepage. And as always, traffic safety tips are available on JSO's website in the Alert Today, Alive Tomorrow section. So, and then with that, I want to close with this. I mentioned Boy Scout working on his Eagle project. His name is Adam Resch. He's the son of a Jacksonville police officer. His Eagle project is to build in Jacksonville a memorial for fallen police officers. Many people are surprised to even find out that we don't have one already. But Adam has taken on this project. He needs to raise, I think, $250,000. He's doing a very good job going out and getting that on his own. Now, you have to understand, this is a young man who I believe is 17 years old, is committed to a project that's going to cost $250,000. He's already got the city council to grant him a location for the memorial, which is going to be, I think appropriately so, right in front of the Memorial Arena over on A. Philip Randolph. There's an area off to the south side of the entrance there. It's fenced off right now if you'd like to go see it and see where this memorial to fallen officers is going to be located. But Adam still needs funding. Anybody that would like to help, they're selling bricks where you can put your name on them, a lot like the Jacksonville Zoo does and many other places. Great fundraising opportunity. They can call 904-625-1851. That's Adam Resch at 904-625-1851. Or they can email the Fallen Officers Memorial, one word, at gmail.com. Or you can go to a website at www.jax4cops.org. And you can see copies of the memorial there, some likenesses of what the memorial will look like when it is complete. And then my hat is off to Adam, and I wish him the best of luck. And this is why the Boy Scouts are such a great organization. You get a young man like this, and he has learned through the Boy Scouts and through great parenting, I'm sure, that the value of community and giving back. And so, Adam, congratulations on a great project, and I hope we're going to continue to assist you in your fundraising efforts for the Fallen Officer Memorial Eagle project. So I want to thank all of you for being with us. Look for us next month. I really appreciate this opportunity to talk directly with the public. And God bless you, and be safe.